We are going to be joined by Joel Klatt. He's the lead analyst for Fox Sports' college football coverage, and he does join us now from L.A. Joel, great to have you with us. First of all, let's talk about the big picture national perception of the Big Ten, and it feels like it may have taken a little bit of a shot with Ohio State's loss to Oklahoma. Where do you see the Big Ten right now coming off of that marquee loss?
Yeah, I think so much is made about those losses in the marquee games, and certainly it hurts, right? You'd want it to be the other way around if you're a Big Ten fan, but there's still so much football to be played, even for a team like Ohio State. Dave, this is all I would say about Ohio State. If Ohio State were to win the rest of their games and be Big Ten champions, do you think there is any way in the world that they're not in the college football playoff? Of course they would be, because they're Ohio State, and they still have a lot of bullets in the chamber when it comes to that schedule. Penn State will be in the top 10. Michigan will probably be in the top 10. Who knows what Michigan State will be after that game in a couple of weeks against Notre Dame. They would still potentially have a Big Ten championship. So just pump the brakes, right, on this whole narrative of like, oh, Big Ten's down, Big 12 up, all this different things. I think we're far too quick to go up and down with a whole conference based on 1 week of play.
Hey, Joel, I think part of that, first of all, I agree with everything you said. Part of that is how impressive Oklahoma looked, right? So if you're studying the game and you're a student of the game, or if you're on the committee watching the game, and they will eventually watch that game if they haven't already, that's an impressive Oklahoma team. So I think that plays part of the narrative that absolutely Ohio State can get back in this thing. You agree?
No question about it. And Oklahoma looked fantastic. I don't know. Listen, Lamar Jackson is doing unbelievable things that we haven't seen. And I still, feel relatively good about saying I don't know if there's a better quarterback, at least right now, than Baker Mayfield. He was 16 of 17 on the road in the second half against the #2 team in the country, handing Ohio State their worst home loss since 1999. I mean, that was some spectacular stuff now. And we've seen Ohio State recover from this before. Remember now, the Virginia Tech loss was a much worse loss than losing to Oklahoma, in particular Baker Mayfield-led Oklahoma team. That Virginia Tech loss happened in 2014. And I would also say, for those that are worried about the Buckeyes, the last 2 times that Urban Meyer has won a national championship, he's lost a home game in September. He did so with Florida with the Tim Tebow team that lost to Ole Miss at home in the Swamp. So their season is certainly not over, and it's certainly not doom and gloom for the entire conference.
No, I hear you. And I think, look, 5 of the last 6 national champions have lost a home game during the course of the year. I mean, it's not like you go out of your way to try to lose one, but to your point, it certainly doesn't eliminate you from the race in any way. But there's just been this consternation, as you know, Joel, where the passing game felt like it was a little broken at the end of last year, certainly in the Clemson game where they were shut out. Urban Meyer team was shut out for the first time ever. They vowed to fix it, and then you get what you got from the passing game against Oklahoma. So what do you make of the J.T. Barrett situation now?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? That's a different conversation, because you can say, hey, they'll fix it and they won a national championship and this or that. But in hindsight, who's to say that they would have won that national championship if J.T. Barrett was the quarterback? I'm not trying to disparage him, but he is not a risk taker down the field. Cardale Jones stretched the ball down the field, and that's what opened up that rushing game, and Zeke Elliott had more success with Cardale Jones as quarterback than he ever did with J.T. Barrett as quarterback, and the numbers proved that out in those last 3 games in the Big Ten championship and then the playoff against Alabama and ultimately against Oregon. It is a concern. Now, the one thing I would say is that I do believe that they're more explosive on the outside than they've been in the last couple of years. And Kevin Wilson is a guy that can figure this out. It's not like this guy forgot how to coach football all of a sudden. He's had teams that have gone down the field before. He was the coordinator of the 08 Oklahoma team that set all those offensive records. We've seen Indiana go down the field with guys like Richard Lego, who did it against Ohio State in week 1. They can and will figure this out. College football teams evolve over the course. Coach, you know that. I mean, listen, teams can get better, in particular when they've got great coaching staffs. And I would say that Ohio State has a great coaching staff. So if we're still having this conversation week 5 on a Wednesday and we're talking about the downfield passing attack for Ohio State or lack thereof, then it's really cause for concern. It's concerning now, yes, but I still think there's time for them to evolve into something much different.
How about this conversation, though, Joel? There's time for them to evolve and get better without question. I think not much better. I just think after asking the same player to do the same things year in and year out and they haven't gotten done, it's time to move on, but continue to improve. Can they win it all featuring the tailbacks and the quarterback run game in the spread with a little bit of improvement in the pass game, but not significant improvement? Can you win a national championship with that style of offense?
I don't think so. I think they would have to stretch the field because the fact remains when you play the best teams in the country, they will exploit you. Their defenses will exploit you unless you can stretch the field. If you can't, their safeties are going to play too close to the line of scrimmage. They will shut down the east-west style passing game, the short passing game. They will shut down even a potent running attack with a good offensive line. We saw Oklahoma do it Saturday night. Clemson certainly has the ability to do that if they were to be a playoff matchup. Alabama, we know, has the ability to do that with a great stout defensive front like they always have. And I would even put teams out there like USC and what they've been able to do. I mean, USC is a very talented team. There are teams out there that if Ohio State doesn't grow down the field in terms of their passing game, they will not beat them. So they've got to get better in those areas if they're going to reach the aspirations of potentially being national champions this year.
And despite the loss, Joel, you mentioned that the Buckeyes still do have a chance. And let's revisit the loss against Oklahoma. Another intriguing storyline from that game. Baker Mayfield, who you say is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, took to the field after the win in a very dramatic fashion, bringing the Oklahoma flag and planting it in the center of the O, bringing lots of attention. Even Siri this morning, when asked who owns Ohio Stadium, the answer Siri gave was Baker Mayfield. What do you make about this entire situation and the apology that he delivered afterwards?
I mean, I don't think that apology was his idea. I mean, right? I think that was born out of the president, David Bourne, or Joe Castiglione, the athletic director, maybe even his head coach, Lincoln Riley. I loved it. You know, I mean, this is what's great about college football, guys. This doesn't happen at other levels, right? You don't see Aaron Rodgers running a Packers flag around and jamming it into the ground in the Dallas Cowboys star. Now, T.O. did it, and that's a different story, and that was during the game and not after the game. But I would just say that this is part of the organic tribalism that makes college football so unique and the reason why I love our sport so much. If Ohio State really had that much of a problem, they should have done something in the 3 previous hours when they actually had a chance on the field. Now, do I have the stones to do something like that? No, no, but Baker Mayfield surely does. He's got some serious swag. I don't have as much of a problem as some other people do, primarily because this is the style of player that he is. And Oklahoma does this after big wins, in particular that Red River Shootout. They always do it in the Cotton Bowl, similar to how Ohio State always sings their song regardless of the field. So people could use the same excuse of what Ohio State did at Oklahoma a year before and what Mayfield did in the shoe on Saturday night.
Yeah, Joe, I partially disagree with you in this part. I don't think he should have done it. I don't think he should have been forced to make an apology. What I think should have happened is I think people in his organization, maybe the head coach, maybe the president, should have said, this isn't the best thing to do. We'd like you to consider apologizing and not make him apologize. And I'm serious. This is what I would have done if he was my player, and I would have told the team, I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's not sportsmanlike. I'm not going to force you not to do it, but I would seriously consider you, Baker, and everybody in this team to consider not doing that the next time you're put in that situation.
I don't disagree with you. Like I said, I wouldn't do it, you know, as a player. I will say this. Do you think the other guys in that locker room at Oklahoma loved him and loved it? Because I guarantee you that they did, and that's that type of chemistry moment where this team certainly plays for him as a leader. Like I said, Coach, you're exactly right. And if I was a head coach, I would be cringing. If I was his father, I would be cringing. But on the outside looking in, you know, there's much worse things that happen in college football than Baker Mayfield taking a victory lap at Ohio Stadium with the OU flag.
I couldn't agree with you more. There are a lot worse things. But he's not only representing the guys in the locker room, Joel, as you know. I mean, you didn't just represent the guys on the Colorado team with your actions. So I think he has an obligation, especially if he's a Heisman candidate, which he clearly is. I mean, there's Heisman voters that are going to hold this against him. But that's not even the most important thing. He represents the university, not just the football team.
Yeah, and that's why I think you saw the apology. But I'll come back to the fact that kid is playing outrageous football right now. And there are a lot of quarterbacks doing that. You know, I mean, we see Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson's playing out of his mind, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Mason Rudolph. We've got some guys in our sport right now that are just playing a phenomenal level at that position. And unfortunately, and it's because of his actions, we're having to discuss this rather than, you know, all of that. And that's where, Coach, you're right. It's probably one of the things that you would be trying to avoid if you're Baker Mayfield, because the narrative could be so positive for your team moving forward off of that. But it happened, and they're going to have to move forward. And this is not the first mistake he's ever made in his life, right?
Well, Joel, you mentioned Sam Darnold. Of course, you have USC and Texas this weekend. Enjoy that. Are we still good for next week? I mean, we okay here? I got a little contentious.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm a player again, and my head coach is giving me a lashing, you know, but
we'll have him back off. We'll DiNardo back off. Just a smidge.
People have tried to make me back off. There's no doubt.